We have a powerful story tonight with huge international implications. It's about the assassination nearly 6 years ago of Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri, a murder mystery that has never been solved and CBC News has learned never fully investigated. Our report centers on the findings of a young Lebanese intelligence officer that could have drastically changed the early direction of the investigation. CBC News has sensitive documents central to this case. Our senior Washington correspondent, Neil MacDonald, has been working on this story for months. Neil, what can you tell us? Wendy,
these are the documents that we're talking about, and sensitive is an understatement. The UN has actually contacted us and demand that we turn them back over to the UN. This one in particular, this is the evidence upon which any eventual indictments of Hezbollah will almost certainly rest, and it points completely to the party of God as Hariri's assassins. The second document, this one, is an internal memo naming the current head of Lebanese intelligence as a possible Hezbollah accomplice.
Almost immediately after the bomb blast that killed Rafik Hariri in early 2005, the UN dispatched its investigative commission to Beirut. The Lebanese were furious, and so was the Western world. The world was blaming Syria, and Western governments wanted public justice.
There was a great deal of anger, incredulity, in a way, of the brazenness of this move. And the dramatic nature in which it took place. I mean, this enormous amount of explosive. Just the whole thing was a big middle finger to the international community.
But while the UN Commission made a bold start, it was soon bogged down in its own inertia. In fact, it wasn't until nearly 3 years later that it began analyzing phone records from the area around the blast. Eventually, the UN put together this chart. It identifies the so-called Red Network, the phones carried by the actual hit squad that killed Hariri, and the logistics and surveillance networks behind them. Ultimately, it all traced directly or indirectly to Hezbollah, which is now trying to blame the murder on Israel. UN investigators also focused on another possible suspect, this man, Wissam al-Hassan, currently the head of Lebanese intelligence. Hassan was once Hariri's chief of security, and he should have been in the motorcade the day of the blast. He wasn't. This UN memo from 2008, obtained by CBC News, lays out the suspicions UN detectives had about Hassan. It recommends he be quietly investigated. The UN Commission's management declined to do so, basically on diplomatic grounds. UN officials repeatedly declined requests for an interview and sent a lawyer's letter on Friday demanding the CBC turn over the documents it has obtained. But the hero of the whole saga is this man, a Lebanese police captain named Wissam Eid. Eid, working on his own, identified Hezbollah and the interconnecting phone networks long before the UN did. He reported his findings to the UN in 2006, and the UN, amazingly, lost his report. When the UN finally contacted Captain Eid in 2008, the policeman was himself assassinated days later by another bomb.
We've spoken, Wendy, with several former UN investigators. They all believe Hezbollah had penetrated the commission and that it knew every move the UN was making. They also suspect the Lebanese intelligence chief, al-Hassan, may have been the possible leak, an open book to Hezbollah, as one of the investigators put it to me. So we know what happened to the young investigator. What happened to him? Well, Wissam al-Hassan is still the head of Lebanese intelligence. He did give investigators an alibi, but his own phone records suggested he was lying. He's a very important man in Lebanon. He's actually seen as a close ally of Saad Hariri, the assassinated former prime minister's son, who is now the prime minister. The question is, who else was he answering to? We actually did manage to reach Wissam al-Hassan today in Lebanon. He declined repeatedly to comment on this. Well, I'm sure other people will be calling him now. It's an amazing story, Neil. Great digging, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Right, thanks. Thank you.